Welcome to Car and Bike. I am Siddharth Vinayak Partnkar. We are in Banbury in England. This is the site of something that we've talked about for about a year now, but we finally get to show you more of it. The Mahindra Advanced Design Europe. It's the new design studio that was conceived last year. It has been officially inaugurated, and that's not all. We also get a peek into Mahindra's electric future with 5 upcoming models that are going to form the backbone of its business over the next several years.
BE, that's the new all-electric brand from Mahindra. And all the BE EVs will be based on the new INGLO platform, which will also spawn all-electric models under the XUV brand. The vehicles, well SUVs in this case, will come with 60 to 80 kilowatt-hour battery capacity and will be offered with both rear-wheel and all-wheel drive. The rear-wheel drive will develop between 228 to 282 brake horsepower, while the all-wheel drive version will push out a whopping 335 to 389 brake horsepower. Torque, of course, like all electric cars, will be available from the word go. No wonder then that the company claims a 0 to 100 km/h time between 5 and 6 seconds. In fact, it will come with an intelligent electronic brake system that offers best-in-class recuperation. We are told there will be no brakes at the rear. The company also says that with a 175 kilowatt fast charger, the cars can be charged to up to 80% in less than 30 minutes, while the estimated all-electric range is between 450 to 670 kilometers. If you thought these numbers look promising, well, it's time to take a look at the cars. And there were 3 of them that were showcased. The first is the BE.05.
We move away from the Mahindra identity for the first time on a vehicle with the B brand, and for what it's worth, we lose the double O and go to a single O. That's right, you got all the nomenclature that's going to follow the B, and then after that, a number. This is going to be the most compact of the lot. It has a proper market vision attached to it, so it's not just a concept in that sense. Nice and compact, and yet really chunky in terms of muscle. Very sharp angular lines, sort of definitive in many ways of what styling on B is going to look like going forward. Now, this is the 05. There's going to be 2 others at least that we've been told about. But the interesting thing is that they'll all rest on this platform, INGLO. Now, that is the new thing. That's the heart of the announcement really from Mahindra, because this is where all the magic will happen. It is a modular platform. It is the one that will spawn not just the B brand, but also the XUV E brand. So everything going forward from now in terms of electric, which is pretty much the future, for the Mahindra portfolio will rest on INGLO. And yes, you have heard about the partnership with Volkswagen and all the MEB components. Well, they all go into this, and that's what the whole partnership and development is all about.
Now, the BE.05 will be launched in October 2025, and with a wheelbase of 2,775 millimeters, it promises to be very spacious on the inside. Given the proportions, it will compete with the Tata Curve. The BE.05 features a decidedly driver-focused cabin, with the center console neatly dividing the driver and passenger area. The highlights on the inside are the large twin touchscreens and a 2-spoke steering wheel. It also has a rotary control for the gear lever and a large gear selector. The next one out will be the BE.07.
So the BE.07, definitely a larger vehicle, more SUV-like proportion in a more exaggerated way. Speaking of exaggerated, this is a concept, so you see some of these design elements, they are very much concept car-like, but hopefully a lot of this, in terms of at least the way it looks overall, makes it to production. It's also the last one off the block of the cars that have been announced today. This will only hit the market in October 2026. Now, at the time, you can expect a whole lot of what you're seeing here to come in, and perhaps some changes by then as well. But I think the one thing that carries through for me is just this edgy styling with all the angular lines and a little bit of that exaggeration, and yet a bit of a coupe line here at the back. So it's not as stood up as the XUV brand perhaps will be. That to me is a bit of a defining characteristic that separates those two brands, because both will be all electric, both will use the INGLO platform, but both will have their own distinct identity. Now, by the time we get to 2026, a lot of manufacturers will have vehicles like this on the road, and so that distinct identity becomes even more important. Take a look at what's happening here with all the LED lighting details. You've got elements inside here, you've got this. Now, again, a lot of this is concept car-like, but what we will see, therefore, is exaggeration. I keep using that word because I think that's what the BE brand or the B brand will represent. Nice large 21-inch wheels, and perhaps a lot more in terms of technology on the inside in particular, but also stuff like this, cameras instead of rear view mirrors, and of course the charging port, which becomes the most important element because all these cars, as I keep saying, are electric.
The BE.07 previews a tech-laden and practical cabin with a giant screen that covers the length of the dashboard. Mahindra seems to have done away entirely with physical controls for the BE.07, instead relying only on touch and haptic feedback. The final car showcased was the BE.09.
Very obviously a coupe SUV, this one, and in many ways it's like a supersized version of the 05 that we've seen. What I want to talk about here is also the use of that lighting element even in the rear. Of course, LED lighting goes without saying, nice and slim, and also end-to-end. That's also in sort of keeping with a lot of the trends that we're seeing. The BE logo or B logo, Born Electric, for those of you who haven't caught up on that, that is going to be inbuilt. It's sort of flush with the surface and it's inlit. So that's something distinct and new and nice little defining characteristic, if you will. The diffuser is very pronounced. It's also nice and high up. In fact, approach departure angles on this vehicle do talk to an off-roading capability. We'll see what gets announced, of course, when the car actually hits the market. That is, of course, still some time away.
Mahindra is yet to reveal the dimensions or the estimated launch timeline for the BE.09.